opens on a cold, nearly deserted railway station at dusk. A place meant for passing through, not staying, where the wind carries the smell of iron rails and old dust. The cowboy arrives, expecting nothing more than to water his horse and wait for a delayed freight train. But his attention is caught by a solitary figure curled on a wooden bench beneath the dim station lamp. The native woman is asleep or pretending to be wrapped in a worn shawl that cannot fully protect her from the cold, her body tense even in rest, one hand clenched around a small bundle that holds everything she owns. There is something about her stillness that speaks of long roads, closed doors, and nights spent watching for danger. The cowboy does not wake her at first. Instead, he studies the signs he has learned to read over years of solitude, bruised exhaustion, guarded breathing, the look of someone who has learned to disappear to survive. He remembers other stations, other forgotten people, and the guilt of riding past them because stopping felt too complicated. This time, he stays. When she finally opens her eyes, fear flashes through them before she schools her expression into wary pride. He introduces himself simply, without questions, offering her coffee from his tin cup and a blanket from his saddle. His voice is calm, respectful, as if he understands that anything louder might shatter the fragile calm holding her together. Their conversation is sparse, made of careful pauses and half-truths. She gives him only her name, and even that feels borrowed. He learns she missed her train on purpose, though she does not explain why, and he does not press. As night deepens and the station grows colder, he senses the unspoken truth. She has nowhere safe to go. The offer he makes is not dramatic or heroic, but gentle and deliberate, weighed down by the knowledge of how easily power can be abused. "Come home with me, if you want," he says, making sure she hears the choice in his words. He tells her she can leave whenever she likes, that he expects nothing, that his ranch is quiet and far from people who ask questions. She studies him for a long moment, measuring risk against exhaustion, pride against survival. In that silence, Part 1 establishes the heart of the story. Two wounded souls, meeting at the edge of their loneliness, bound not by rescue or obligation, but by a single moment of compassion freely offered. When she finally nods, rising from the bench with shaking legs, neither of them calls it destiny, but both feel the subtle shift of a life turning onto a new path. Follows the uneasy journey away from the station, where the woman rides beside the cowboy in silence, every mile stretching the fragile trust between them. The horse's steady rhythm and the open road offer a strange comfort, yet her body remains tense, ready to flee at the first sign of threat. She watches his hands more than his face, how he keeps them loose on the reins, how he never reaches toward her without warning, how he leaves a careful distance between them as though respecting an invisible boundary. The cowboy senses her vigilance and does not mistake it for ingratitude. He recognizes it as survival learned the hard way. As the landscape opens into wide plains and shadowed hills, the cold night air gives way to quiet conversation, hesitant and fragmented. She reveals only what feels safe, that she left her community after a series of losses, that promises made to her were broken, and that she learned too late how easily kindness can turn into possession. Each word costs her something, and when her voice falters, he does not push for more. Instead, he speaks of the land, how the soil changes after rain, how stars look different when you re far from towns, as if grounding her in the present might soften the past. He shares little of himself, but what he does say carries weight, that he lives alone by choice, that he values quiet because noise often hides cruelty, and that no one at his ranch will demand explanations. When they stop to rest, he makes a small fire and turns his back while she eats, an act that unsettles her more than suspicion ever could. She realizes she is bracing for harm that never comes. As they continue, the fear inside her shifts shape, not disappearing, but slowly loosening its grip. By the time the ranch comes into view, nestled against the dark outline of the hills, she is no longer certain whether she is running from something or moving toward it. The cowboy dismounts first and gestures toward the house without instruction, letting her decide where to stand, where to go, whether to enter at all. She hesitates at the threshold, overwhelmed by the idea of walls that might protect rather than confine her. In that moment, Part 2 deepens the emotional stakes. The journey is not merely physical, but internal, marking the first time she allows herself to believe that safety might exist without a price. As she steps inside, she understands that trust is not given all at once, it is built mile by mile, choice by choice, and, for the first time in a long while, she chooses to stay. settles into the quiet rhythm of the ranch, revealing that the house the woman has entered is not a trap, but a place deliberately shaped by restraint and respect. Morning light filters through rough-cut windows, and she wakes in a real bed, startled by the absence of fear in her chest. No locked doors, no watching eyes. The cowboy is already outside, tending to his chores, giving her the dignity of privacy rather than supervision. When they share breakfast, he does not ask her plans or intentions. He simply sets an extra plate on the table, as though her presence requires no explanation. The simplicity of it unsettles her more than cruelty ever did. She expects conditions to surface work demanded, gratitude implied, but instead, he offers options. If she wants to help, he will show her how. If she wants to rest, the day is hers. As hours pass, she explores the small details of the house. A shelf of worn books, a carefully mended coat hanging by the door, signs of a man accustomed to fixing what is broken rather than discarding it. These quiet discoveries begin to soften her guarded heart. She chooses to help with small tasks, not because she must, but because she wants to feel useful on her own terms. He thanks her without ceremony, never framing her effort as debt. Over the following days, a fragile routine forms: shared meals, separate silences, moments where their eyes meet and quickly look away, both aware of something growing that neither is ready to name. At night, she listens for footsteps that never come, realizing the greatest gift he offers is not shelter but autonomy. Yet comfort brings its own fear. With safety comes the risk of hope, and hope has betrayed her before. She watches him closely, searching for the flaw that will prove her caution right. Instead, she finds consistency. The way he speaks plainly, the way he never raises his voice, the way he respects her stories without claiming them. In part Tiga, the emotional core deepens as she begins to understand that this house is not a cage, but a place where she is allowed to exist without performance or defense. The cowboy, in turn, becomes quietly aware that her presence is changing the space, filling rooms he once accepted as empty. Yet he does not reach for her, knowing that the most meaningful connection is the one she chooses freely. As the days stretch on, the ranch transforms from refuge into possibility, and for the first time, she wonders what it might mean not just to survive, but to belong. Introduces the return of danger, breaking the fragile calm the woman has begun to trust. One afternoon, while the cowboy is away tending the outer fences, riders from the nearby town arrive unannounced, their questions sharp and their smiles wrong. They claim they are looking for a native woman who belongs somewhere else, speaking as though her life is a misplaced object rather than her own. From the porch, she hears their voices and feels old fear flood back, her body reacting before her mind can reason. She knows this pattern too well. Men who frame control as concern, authority as entitlement. When the cowboy returns and sees them, his response is not explosive but firm, a quiet strength that halts them more effectively than anger would. He positions himself between them and the house without touching her, making it unmistakably clear whose choice matters. He tells them she is free to go wherever she wishes, and that no claim made without her voice is worth hearing. The men bristle, insult him, and attempt to intimidate her into silence. But he never raises his voice, never steps aside. His calm becomes a mirror, exposing their aggression for what it is. In that moment, she realizes something profound. He is not protecting her as an owner guards property, but as a man who respects her autonomy. When the riders finally leave, promising trouble, the quiet that follows feels heavier than before. She is shaken, ashamed of how quickly fear returned, yet also stunned by the way he stood for her without demanding gratitude or loyalty in return. That night, she confesses pieces of her past she has never spoken aloud. The promises that turned into cages, the way she learned to measure kindness by how soon it would be withdrawn. He listens without interruption, his attention steady, his presence offering more comfort than words. Part 4 marks the emotional shift, where safety becomes something active rather than assumed, and love begins to stir not from romance, but from dignity fiercely upheld. For the first time, she allows herself to imagine that someone could stand beside her without trying to own her, and that realization terrifies her almost. Centers on the invisible wall that rises between them, just as their bond begins to deepen. After the confrontation with the men from town, the woman grows distant, retreating into herself as old lessons resurface. Every kindness, she believes, eventually demands a price. The cowboy notices the change immediately. The way she avoids lingering in shared spaces, how her laughter fades, how she chooses work that keeps her far from him. He does not confront her, sensing that pressure would only confirm her fears. Instead, he gives her space, though the silence weighs heavily on him. She tells herself that leaving now would hurt less than staying until hope becomes dependence. At night, she lies awake, listening to the steady sounds of the ranch, struggling against the unfamiliar ache of wanting something that feels dangerous. When he finally asks if she plans to leave, his voice carries no accusation, only quiet honesty. The question breaks something open inside her. She admits that she does not know how to stay without losing herself. That love, if that is what this is, has always come wrapped in ownership and fear. He responds with a truth of his own, revealing that he has lived alone, not because he prefers solitude, but because he refuses to build a life where another person must shrink to fit beside him. He tells her that she owes him nothing, not loyalty, not affection, not gratitude, that if she chooses to go, he will not stop her. His words are meant to free her, yet they wound her all the same, because they confirm that the choice is truly hers. Part 5 deepens the emotional conflict by showing that the greatest threat to their love is not the outside world, but the scars they both carry. As distance settles between them, unspoken feelings linger in every shared glance, every unfinished sentence. They stand on opposite sides of the same longing, each afraid that reaching for the other might mean losing themselves. Marks the moment of separation, when fear finally outweighs hope. Before dawn, the woman quietly gathers her few belongings, moving through the house with a careful reverence, as though memorizing the shape of a life she is choosing to leave behind. She does not wake the cowboy, believing that goodbyes make resolve fragile. Leaving feels cruel, yet staying feels riskier, because what she has found on the ranch is not just safety, but Lavand. Lavand has always been the place where she has lost herself. As she rides away, the land that once felt open now feels unbearably empty. When the cowboy wakes and realizes she is gone, the absence strikes deeper than he expects. He does not chase her immediately, forcing himself to respect the choice he promised to honor. But the silence she leaves behind gnaws at him. Meanwhile, her journey becomes a harsh reminder of why she fled in the first place. The world beyond the ranch is still unforgiving, and the men who once claimed her freedom was not hers cross her path again, emboldened by her isolation. In the face of real danger, she understands the truth she tried to deny. The cowboy never offered rescue or control, only partnership and choice. As fear closes in, clarity follows. She realizes she did not leave to protect herself from him, but from the possibility of happiness she did not believe she deserved. Part 6 transforms loss into realization, showing that sometimes love is recognized only in its absence. Just as danger threatens to repeat her past, she makes a desperate decision to return, not because she needs saving, but because she finally knows what she is choosing. Brings the long-awaited reunion, charged with urgency and truth. The cowboy finds her just as the danger she fled from begins to close in, drawn not by a need to rescue, but by the certainty that his life no longer makes sense without her in it. When they meet, there are no careful pauses or guarded words left between them. She is shaken, exhausted, and finally honest, admitting that she ran because she was afraid of wanting a future where she could be loved without being owned. She tells him that for the first time, staying feels braver than leaving. He listens, his expression steady, and answers with a confession of his own that he never meant to change her or protect her from the world, only to stand beside her if she chose him. There is no grand declaration, only the quiet gravity of truth spoken aloud. When the threat from her past resurfaces, they face it together, united not by fear, but by mutual resolve. He makes it clear, with calm authority, that she is not alone, and not claimed by anyone but herself. In that shared stand, something shifts permanently between them. Part 7 marks the moment love stops being an unspoken undercurrent and becomes a conscious decision. When she takes his hand, it is not in desperation, but in choice, and that single gesture carries more promise than any vow. Together, they turn back toward the ranch, no longer as host and guest, but as equals walking toward a life they are ready to build side by side. Brings the story to a heartfelt resolution, where home becomes a place of choice rather than circumstance. Back at the ranch, the woman returns fully aware that she is stepping into a life she has decided to claim, not one imposed upon her. The cowboy greets her quietly, without fanfare, offering the same calm respect he always has. Yet there is a new depth in his gaze, an unspoken acknowledgement that their bond has transformed into something enduring. Days pass with a gentle rhythm of shared labor, quiet evenings on the porch, and small, meaningful conversations that build trust into something permanent. She discovers that the ranch, once a strange and isolated space, now feels like a sanctuary where she can exist without fear, where her voice matters, and where her choices shape the future. The cowboy, too, feels the shift. The empty rooms he once accepted now hum with life and laughter, the walls echoing not just the sounds of work, but of belonging. Together, they navigate the balance of love and autonomy, understanding that their connection thrives not through possession, but through mutual respect and willingness to stand beside one another. In the final scene, they watch the sun rise over the hills, the station where they first met fading into memory, replaced by a home they are building together. Part 8 celebrates the story's central truth. Love is strongest when it is freely chosen, and a life shared by two people who honor each other. Yes, freedom can transform loneliness into lasting companionship and hope.